And joining me now is a lawmaker at the center of everything on Capitol Hill, Missouri Republican Congressman and Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith. Chairman Smith, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
It's great to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I want to start with the president's address tonight. A recent CBS poll said that 80% say inflation should be a high priority for the president. No surprise there, but just 29% say he is prioritizing it a lot. As you know, this is one of the big reasons why he was elected. What do you expect to hear from him tonight when it comes to inflation and lowering prices?
Kristen, without a doubt, the two top items that the voters cared about was the economy and also the border. What we will hear tonight, I expect, is the president praising the accomplishments he's had over the last 6 weeks. For example, $1.6 trillion of new investment that has just been announced. And if you look at the prior administration in the first 4 years, it was roughly $1 trillion. You'll also see the deregulation that he's been very instrumental in with his executive orders, but also the big, beautiful bill that he has been pushing, which has the tax cuts, also spending cuts, and border and energy policies. I think those are the main items that he'll be highlighting tonight.
And we are going to talk about your strategy for getting that passed, because I know how focused you are on that. But let me ask you about these tariffs against Canada and Mexico and China, the United States' three biggest trading partners. They took effect today. Those countries are already retaliating with tariffs on U.S. goods. Let me read you something that Senator Rand Paul posted. He said, quote, "Tariffs are taxes. And if you tax trade, you'll get less trade and less prosperity." What say you? Do you agree with him?
Well, tariffs are definitely taxes. That's why it's so crucial that we move this one big, beautiful bill as quickly as possible to provide tax relief. One of the incentives that we're going to be pushing within this tax bill is making sure that there's lower tax rates for people who produce their products in the United States. So help offset some of what they're going to be experiencing in some of the tariffs. But yeah, tariffs are definitely taxes, but that's why we need tax relief moving in this one big, beautiful bill, as the president likes to call it.
You saw what happened on Wall Street yesterday and today on the news of these tariffs. You have seen what happens historically, which is that prices do go up. The president himself has said there may be some short-term pain. Chairman, do you acknowledge that prices on a number of goods will likely go up in the wake of these tariffs?
You know, it'll definitely have winners and losers all across the board. What we do know is that if you travel across the country, you see a lot of storefronts that have closed because of unfair trade practices that have happened in years past. And the president is one who believes to make sure that the American worker, the American farmer, the American manufacturer is treated fairly when it comes to trade. He's very big on the reciprocal trade. I think you'll see that be implemented more after April 1st, which is the study that his first executive order did with a lot of different trade practices with other countries. It's definitely going to be bouncy, but the president wants some substantial change, and he wants to make the country wealthy.
Very quickly, when you say it's going to be bouncy, does that mean you're somewhat concerned about the fact that prices will likely go up and the impact that could have on Republicans moving forward?
Well, I mean, let's just think about it. Over the last 4 years, we've already faced a 21% inflation tax that has affected everything you purchase to put food on your table, clothes on your backs, or gasoline in your cars. So we have experienced that type of inflation. What we could also experience is a 22% tax increase if Congress doesn't deliver this one big, beautiful bill, because the president's successful tax cuts from 2017 expire at the end of this year. And if Congress does not act, you'll face a 22% tax increase. That will affect everyone's paycheck.
So, okay, let's talk about what you are talking about, this big, quote unquote, big, beautiful bill, also known as the budget reconciliation process. You're trying to get this through. You're the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. As I noted, President Trump has said that he wants this bill to pass, but he's been a little bit light on the details about what he actually wants. Do you expect him to lay out more guidance tonight?
I think the president's been very clear. Basically, on the campaign trail, he said he wants to extend the expiring provisions of the 2017 tax cuts. He wants no tax on tips. He wants tax relief for seniors. He wants no tax on overtime, and he wants tax incentives for products that's produced in the United States. These are things that we will deliver in this one big, beautiful bill, and this is what he's campaigned on over the last couple years.
That's about $9 trillion, though. Will those tax cuts be offset? Who's going to pay for it?
I don't know where the Kristen, I don't know where the $9 trillion dollar value comes from. There's a lot of dials whenever you're looking at different tax policy. What we have figured is that the $4.5 trillion calculation that's in the budget resolution can deliver on all of the president's priorities.
So you're looking to offset all of those tax cuts, just to be clear. That's the goal.
Well, first off, a big portion of those are current tax policy, and that's still yet to be decided of how the Senate responds to the House budget resolution. They're pushing the current policy baseline, which is current tax policy. We did it a little bit differently on the House side, and so we don't know exactly what they're going to do over there just yet.
Chairman Smith, as you know, President Trump has said repeatedly he doesn't want to cut Medicaid spending. Your colleague, Keith Self, said this last week, quote, "We cannot get to where we need to go without Medicaid. Medicaid is where a lot of these savings could come from." Do you acknowledge that you may have to make significant changes to Medicaid?
The president has been clear that he does not want to cut benefits for people who are on Medicaid. However, he's open to looking at ways to create more efficiencies and also to make sure that illegal immigrants aren't receiving Medicaid. These are the things that the president has spoken up that he's willing to address. But in regards to benefits for people on Medicaid, he's absolutely opposed to it.
Well, you know, the challenge is the math, because the budget resolution calls for $880 billion in cuts from the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And anyone who understands that amount of money knows that it's really tough to get there without slashing Medicaid significantly, which would ultimately mean people would lose coverage, wouldn't it?
It does not mean that people could lose coverage. When you talk to the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, which I was doing yesterday, it doesn't have to just come from Medicaid. Energy and Commerce covers spectrum, covers multiple areas within energy that can be looked at. But just requiring re-verification for someone who's on Medicaid more than once a year could have a savings of almost $200 billion. And what we see right now is someone who qualifies for Medicaid, 5 days later, they may have a pay increase and not qualify, but they're still on the program for the remaining 360 days.
Let me ask you about the DOGE cuts that we are seeing Elon Musk carry out. As you know, some of your Republican colleagues have gotten some pretty fierce pushback at town halls. Does that give you any concern? Do you think the Trump administration is moving too fast and too broad?
I'll tell you, in my congressional district in southeast Missouri, my constituents are praising the work of DOGE. They believe government is bloated and it's too big and it needs to be reduced and be efficient. So I've not been receiving that in our congressional district, but I think most people who I represent, they want a more efficient, effective government that works for them.
And yet you are aware that some of your colleagues have faced some pretty heated backlash. In fact, the NRCC chair, Richard Hudson, advised Republicans just this morning against doing town halls after some of the scenes that we have seen play out. Is that what you would advise some of your colleagues, to cancel town halls?
I would tell my colleagues to do whatever is necessary to reach the majority of their constituents so that they can hear directly from their constituents. But unfortunately, it looks like this is the same practice that's been going on whenever President Trump was in the White House the last time. You saw a lot of groups organize and actually have paid organizations that helped create obstacles to obstruct and to show discontent for the policies that President Trump was pushing forward on.
Let me ask you, because there is a big well, less than 2 weeks now, the government could potentially shut down. Are you confident the government's going to stay open?
I'm not, because the Democrats that I serve with in the House are not wanting to cooperate or negotiate. It looks like the House of Representatives is going to have to pass a continuing funding resolution by ourselves with no help from the Democrats. And let's hope that 7 Democrats in the United States Senate will not allow government to shut down. But right now, the Democrats are not playing ball. They're doing unrelated demands in order to just have a continuing resolution.
Chairman, I have to just press you a little bit there because, of course, Republicans control the White House, the House, and the Senate. Is it not on Republicans' shoulders to keep the government open?
Well, there's this thing called the filibuster in the United States Senate that in order to pass a funding bill, you have to have 60 votes, and there's only 53 Republicans there. So if those 7 Democrats will not vote for the filibuster, the Democrats will be shutting down government. If we could pass funding with just 51 votes in the United States Senate, then you're absolutely right, Kristen. Republicans could keep government funded and open, but unfortunately, because that filibuster rule, as you know as well as I do, the 60 votes, they matter. And if 7 Democrats don't join in with 53 Republicans, they will shut down government.
All right. Well, we will have to see what happens. Chairman Smith, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you'll come back soon.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.